Newsmax TV's coverage of the Republican National Convention continues. We can tell you that the final speaker tonight will be the GOP vice presidential nominee, Indiana Governor Mike Pence. Now, of course, I served in Congress with Mike Pence, and something else I have in common with the GOP vice presidential nominee. He also did a pretty successful stint in talk radio. Following a couple of unsuccessful runs for the House, he was on the air in Indiana. Let's go back to May 23, 1997, Memorial Day weekend, to listen to then talk show host Mike Pence.
It is, in fact, Memorial Day weekend this weekend. Beginning today, the 500 Festival Committee organizes a special commemoration on the American Legion Mall in Indianapolis, Indiana. And let me just close the balance of this show, all the frivolity and all the talk we've had of the military justice and the American military. Let me see if I can't shuffle a little bit of that off and just take a moment to say thanks to all of you listening, men and women, who ever served this country in any way, shape, manner, or form. There might be some of you out there that served in WW1, as you like to call it. Might have been those of you who served in the big one, World War II. Kept freedom alive for the world, for my generation of Americans and for our posterity. I thank you. You might have been warriors on the battlefields of the Cold War, places like Korea and Vietnam. In Korea on Hamburger Hill, where my father earned a Bronze Star, you might have been alongside him. Or you might have just been home praying for him and his buddies. I just want to thank you. Because even though I'm on the tail end of the baby boomer generation, I'm supposed to be a cynic. I'm supposed to not appreciate you people. The sacrifices that you made, I do. I thank God for you. The American flag that'll be flying out in the front step of the Pence house this weekend is for you. And so this Memorial Day, is the roar of thunder heads around the track, I want you to know, when those planes fly over Speedway, Indiana, there'll be a little bit of mist in this American's eyes, because you got the job done. And from the bottom of my heart, I wish you the very best Memorial Day. This is Mike Pence.
Mike Pence from 1997, elected to the House in the year 2000, elected governor of Indiana 4 years ago, and tonight he officially accepts the Republican vice presidential nomination. To talk about Mr. Pence, a fellow talk show host who transitioned to TV along with me, Skyping in from New York, the host of the Steve Malzberg Show that you see weeknights at 7 o'clock Eastern right here, Steve Malzberg. And on the anchor desk, a frequent talk radio guest and television guest, former Chief of Staff to Congressman Walter B. Jones, Glen Downs. So, Brother Malzberg, we hear Pence there from 1997 heading into the Memorial Day weekend. Mike described himself as Rush Limbaugh on decaf. Mike Pence, the broadcaster, what did you think based on that sample?
I think he was very impressive, especially, for what he was saying at the time he was saying it. And, I have no doubt that he will be able tonight to give the speech of his life based on where he is and what he has to do, just as he did almost 20 years ago on the radio on that Memorial Day weekend. So I'm looking forward to it. I don't think he'll disappoint. I think, let me predict, the media will try to pick apart whatever they can, and they will. But we need to realize who they are, ignore them, and I think he'll do a great job.
Glen Downs, the model, at least the post-World War II model, is The vice presidential candidate is the guy who goes out and takes the fight to the other side, and the presidential candidate is more, well, presidential. Looks like this campaign, the Republican ticket has that reversed.
No question about it. Of course, as you indicated, everything in this election cycle has worked differently than people have become accustomed to. And Trump is such a mercurial and sort of a hot character that you have somebody that's a cool character, a cool customer. Pence used to have when he was on Capitol Hill. He said, "I'm a conservative, but I'm not mad about it. I'm not angry about it." So that will, I think, will do a good job of cooling the coffee a little bit for people, and that might be predisposed to want to support somebody other than Hillary, but think having a Pence on that team would be a good calming influence.
You know, Steve Malzberg, I heard from delegates who wanted to see a roll call for the rules vote, and then they went to see Mike Pence speaking at that American Conservative Union Foundation luncheon on Tuesday, and suddenly they were all in for Trump and Pence. Here is a portion of what the Indiana governor had to say.
It's time for us to come together. Time for us to come together around this good man and re-electing Republican majorities in the House and the Senate, because this is no ordinary time in the life of our nation. The truth of the matter is the agenda of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton has weakened America's place in the world and stifled our nation's economy.
Steve Malzberg, Glen Downs made mention of the fact that there was only one Ronald Reagan. And yet when you hear Mike Pence, the way he is able to maintain his emotion and clearly, coherently, calmly put forth the argument for this team, did we underrate Mike Pence in the vice presidential sweepstakes?
Well, I don't know. I hate to compare anybody to Ronald Reagan, especially before he's made this speech. But I think he's a great contrast in many respects to Donald Trump. He as you said, he has the conservative bona fides that will satisfy many people, undecideds, and he's a contrast in style. Almost any professional politician is a contrast in style to Donald Trump. That's not to say Trump doesn't have the mass appeal that he does, but for independents, undecideds, and Bernie Sanders or Hillary, supporters who don't want to vote for her or whatever, he does bring a calm to the storm, and I think it could only help. I think Christie would have been a disaster. I think Newt is a little too abrasive, believe it or not. I think he has a role as chief of staff or something. So I think when all is said and done, I think Pence, I give Trump's children kudos, because apparently they were the ones who selected him, and I think they did a good job.
All right, less than 2 minutes remaining in this segment. Let's make them count by going back to the phones at 1-877-Newsmax to New York for John. Hi, John. Welcome to Newsmax TV.
How you doing, guys?
Great.
First-time caller. I
Good
just want to say I'm a proud union electrician working at the World Trade Center, rebuilding America. And all I got to say is that usually construction work is for Democrats. The unions back the Democrats. But all the workers, 90% of the workers in Tower 3 are backing Donald Trump. Never in my 25 years have I seen Trump, Republican stickers all over the building, in the elevators, Trump on the hard hats. So we need Trump. If we don't get Trump, America is screwed with Hillary. That's all I got to say is go Donald Trump.
Well, John, you said a lot right there. And gentlemen, we hear that. And we spoke earlier, thinking back to the 1980s, the Reagan Democrats. John, Glen Downs is giving us an ample example here of, I guess we call them the Donald Democrats. About 30 seconds.
Well, obviously, what's different between those guys and the professional politicians in Washington is that they're right up against it. They don't have election cycle after election cycle to get this right. The time for making things work is now. So you heard that urgency in that caller's voice.
And urgency is underscored with Steve Malzberg. 10 seconds. Steve, will Trump carry New York?
That's going to be very tough. But, Donald is a giver. Hillary's never given anything. All she has been is a taker, and the blue-collar people know that.
All right, and we appreciate very much what you two gentlemen have to say. Steve Malzberg, who you see weeknights at 7 o'clock Eastern here on Newsmax TV, and Glen Downs joining us here on the anchor desk. A reminder that you can join us. We'd love to hear from you at 1-877-Newsmax. Back with more of our coverage right after this.